about, well, we're going to talk about some less fun stuff, but we're going to talk about why you should still have hope and still take action. And there's still plenty that we can do. So we'll get started.
This is me, right?
Hello, Rob.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rob. So
One second, Rob. We're not. We don't have audio of you.
Oh,
Whoa.
but the internet does, right? Amy, do you hear me?
Yes,
I can hear him just fine. I hear him
um,
just fine.
I hear myself just fine too. Thank you, Tom.
Oh, yes. In the meantime, hi, everyone. My
Can
name
you
is
hear me?
Julia. I work with Friends of Illinois Nature Preserves. And yeah, I'm one of many people who are in many different organizations, many people working on their own. Yeah, that's me. Hi, I'm Jillian. And now I'm stalling because I don't know how the audio is.
Tell us about your life, Jillian. Yeah, I think all of Zoom can hear me. Oh, wait, Jillian can't hear me, so she can't tell us about her life. So I'll just talk to Zoom. Hi, Zoomies. That's what we say my daughter has when we don't let her play around a lot. It's like a dog. If you get your dog tired, that's good. And if you get your 5-year-old tired, that means you get to have a life after 8 p.m. Can you hear me yet in the room?
Not yet.
Wait, how?
Well, we can hear you. It's just not very loud, and you're not.
Oh, okay. That was confusing.
I'm just psychic.
We do heart Prairie's smiley emoticon. Remember emoticons, everybody? Gonna riff on emoticons. Yeah, so the Zoom folks can hear me fine, and the room folks are the ones who can't hear me. My Zoomies.
I think it should be speaker slash.
This one?
Yeah. Okay, because now we can't hear him at all. So
You can't. Well, I wasn't talking.
Ah, dang, you got me.
I should continuously talk, is what you're saying?
That would be ideal.
What if you just yell everything that I'm saying, like the Garrett Morris thing from Saturday Night Live?
Sound check.
Yeah, there you go. Oh yeah, that. So yeah. Hi everyone. We're just working out some kinks. Recite Jabberwocky. 'Twas brillig in the slithy toves, did gyre and gimble in the wabe, all mimsy were the borogroves, and the mome raths outgrave. I can't believe I know that. Why do I know that?
I'm very impressed.
Yeah. Good old mimsy borogroves.
That's doing stuff to the.
Better than check 1, 2. That's true. Do I know past that? All
Yeah.
mimsy were the borogroves and the mome raths outgrabe. There's a Beamish boy and a Vorpal blade that snicker snacks. I remember that.
Okay. Is that
Can you
decent?
hear me? Yeah, there's the Vorpal blade.
Boy, I'm terribly sorry. We have this speaker system and it's just not picking up. Okay, Rob, if you can talk for us.
Can you? Okay. How is this?
This is great.
Oh, it is. I'm great.
You are great.
Oh no, you are. Friends on the Zoomies, I'm trying to I will, so I'm going to be sort of like monitoring the Zooms, and I will respectfully mute your microphones sometimes, and please don't blame yourself. So here's our agenda for the evening. We still heart prairies. We have updates that we know of, but obviously if people have other updates, you're welcome to share. We have what we've identified as, and by we, I mean like there's folks who meet every week about this from the Natural Land Institute and Friends of Illinois Nature Preserves, and sometimes the Illinois Environmental Council and Sinisippi Audubon and other folks, but anyone's welcome to work on any of this. So we'll offer what we've discussed as possible ways forward. And yeah, that's where we're at. I think we can move to the next slide probably, if you like. Okay. We've instituted a TLDR talking point thing. So TLDR, for those of you who are not raised by computers like my daughter is right now, that means too long didn't read. And yeah, thank you, Amy Dahl, for translating. And so the main thing that we want to get across is that there's been a string of not great news for the Prairie, but a lot of it has been not unexpected. We knew a lot of stuff, and so it doesn't change very much about what we're trying to do. So anger is only helpful if you do something with your anger. Hope is not dead. Hope with action, urgent hope is the best kind of hope. And yeah, we need to keep contacting officials, making noise, being irritating, making it stink so bad that they will do anything to get us to stop bothering them. And yeah, legal authority is not the same as power influence. Officials can have influence over outside of their legal authority. I think we'll dive more into that, but you know, getting local officials or state officials to say in public it's not a good thing to destroy needlessly one of our last prairie remnants, that has power, that has social and political capital. And even if the airport are the ones who have almost a, you know, a very tight grip on all of the power that's happening here, that doesn't mean that we can't not go, was it silent into the good night? So yeah, that's the main arc of what we're getting at. And fostering urgent hope is what we're going to do. So Jillian Niece put together these graphics of what she asked folks on our various social medias, these questions. And so Jillian is going to talk about this stuff now.
Yes, I am. So I have seen a lot of people seeming really down because we've gotten some bad news recently, which we'll talk about a little later. But first, I wanted to kind of remind everyone why we're here.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Mom. What's up?
Someone can be muted, por favor. Thank you. So I put out some prompts on social media asking people why they love prairies, and I wanted to share them with us tonight to remind us why we're here, basically. So we can read through some of these. They're all very beautiful. I like almost cried several times while putting them together. But you've got the,
Maybe you could read them out, so 'cause
yes,
it's a little bit small for the people here.
So we've got beauty. They provide inspiration for artists and writers. They're carbon sinks. They conserve water. They're essential for agriculture and can prevent drought. You cannot replace them. Like a first edition book, they're rare and should be preserved for the future. Native plant species, precious, rare, and unique ecosystems. They represent healthy, sustainable ecosystems worth protecting and educating others about. They're peaceful and beautiful. The phenomenal diversity of animals and plant species in remnant prairies creates an incredibly valuable habitat, both for species living there and as a seed source for other prairie restorations. They are what this land should be, its healthiest and most abundant state for all, not just humans. They also represent the best in Illinois. And then we also had someone who was like, what's our favorite thing about prairies? Bees, obviously, which I love because hello, I'm a bee person. So I'll go on to the next one. The next question was, why does Belleville matter to you? And so there were a lot of people who talked about the biodiversity, how it's a rare example of unadulterated original prairie. It's our heritage and our responsibility. The soil within this remnant prairie, it's had generations of deep-rooted plants sequestering carbon, and it hosts unimaginable microbial diversity of species of algae and fungus and microbes that we've never even heard of, probably. Prairies are magical. Biodiversity is immense and important. They tell the story of thousands of years of history of the land and the indigenous peoples who find it sacred. It's alive. Scientists don't have solutions to restoring this loss of life, and remnants hold the answers to that. Man didn't create prairies and cannot recreate it. People talked about how it's older than the pyramids, rarer than the rainforest, and rich with ecological treasures. It offers a lot of hope. It's brought together wonderful people fighting to save it. The spiritual experience that you can get from being in the prairie. Lots of people talked about the idea that once they're gone forever. And so we need to continue fighting to protect it because we can't ever get it back.
Next one.
Yes, please. All right, the last question I asked was what inspires you to keep fighting, which is the one I'm really excited to share with you guys, because if you're finding yourself losing motivation, you can always rely on the other people who are fighting alongside you. So people talked about how it's all we have left. Everything about the prairie inspires them to keep fighting, especially the endangered species.
I'm just listening.
All right.
Go ahead.
Just thank you. We need every last bit of environment preserved when we have so little left. Some people are fighting out of fear for a future of what the ecosystems that sustain us without them, what that's going to look like, how we're going to survive. People talked about how animals deserve their sanctuaries just as much as people do. Just kind of the context this battle has and the precedent that it sets, that if we can't win this battle, what battle preserving nature can be won. And it definitely hits home, that one, but still, even if we don't win this one, you should keep fighting other ones because you never know. The irreplaceable natural capital that we would be destroying in order to achieve fleeting capitalistic goals, which I thought was fun. Faith in people's ability to do the right thing is always a good inspiration, or yeah. The value of ecosystems, all the animals that live there, the dragonflies, bees, frogs, and the plants, and the protection for all of those things. We should keep fighting because it's 8,000 years old at least, and the history and art that is encompassed by it, and because it's the right thing to do. People talked about the future and how their children deserve to know about this prairie. And I added that I'm currently still fighting out of spite because I just want to at this point. I'm just mad. But see, if you're mad, you can still fight. It fuels me. It's great. All right. And so now, we just saw.
Can I rest control and do my screen share so I can just like.
Yes, please do.
Article. Jillian, you are an inspirationer of mine as well.
Thank you.
So can you all see my version of this now? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. This is a fun article. We'll link it to the chat. And this is something that I'm sure as fellow nature nerds, you are aware of, at least to some extent, this idea of the insect apocalypse, as it's been called, the decrease of the windshield effect of being able to drive through America and have just a lot of dead insects on your windshield is the thing that's just not happening anymore. And the insects are very important, and Bell Bowl has some very important insects that we will talk about. So we're just going to go through to sort of like give a sense of the scale of this. I know that people often say that, you know, no one responds to doom and gloom. They always say doom and gloom together because they want to like rhyme and be cute. But yeah, there's some not great stuff in here, and I think we have to give the bugs some more hugs, and this is sort of establishing how that can happen. and how we can value it. There's this this food chain might look familiar, and then just how many different insects are at the bottom of that. Insects are almost a million different, or over a million different species. And you can see this is the good old animal kingdom, part of the tree of life. And it's this beautiful graphic, but the arthropods are like basically the trunk of this tree, or the taproot. And the hexapods are mostly insects, our sweet friends, the springtails over there. And so it's about 2/3 of all animal species on Earth are insects. Beetles are the most diverse of those. And people like to talk about the money, how much money insects give us. It's valued up to $577 billion per year, but like, it's, I think they deserve to exist if they didn't give us any money. There's other ways of looking at it compared to the other animals. This is a big old circle of animals, and you can see how big the insects are. Beetles are about 24% of all animal species, which is nutsoid. Rove beetles and weevils. So there are more species in rove beetles and weevils than all vertebrates. There are more longhorn beetle species. What's that, Jillian?
I just said vertebrates is anything with a backbone. So that would be like mammals.
Not the airport board.
Oh, true. They wish
Sorry.
they were beetles.
I'm sorry, airport board. I know that you're vertebrates. I just wish that you would look out for our like little exoskeleton friends. So yeah, there are more longhorn beetles than birds. About the same number of ladybug species as mammals. And there are more weevils, way more weevils than fishes. This is the root of all weevils. Sorry. You gotta. Sorry. So okay. The illustrations are very nice in here. It's talking about how there are all these stressors on insects. Climate change is not great for insects. The overuse of herbicides and pesticides, not great for insects. Urban sprawl is not great for insects. Light pollution is not great for insects. Fresh water, so the winners here are like freshwater insects in part of the world where we've been able to do a lot better protecting of freshwater in some places, but others are, draining the swamp to do more agriculture. And they talk about different stressors to the large orders. Bees are having a hard time. They talk about honeybees here, but here's our good old friend, the rusty patch bumblebee. It's seen its range shrink by 87% in the last 20 years. And we know that part of that range is located between two runways of our favorite airport. And we are talking about getting rid of that and contributing to this sort of death by a million roads. This is talking about the Western monarchs. I know they're still counting this year's Western monarch populations, but you can see in 2021 it was almost nothing. Doodly doodly doo, sad. So this is talking about the research gap. The blue is our vertebrates that have been studied, and every single known bird species has been assessed. And if you've met a birder, you can believe that. And then when you go to the invertebrates, you can see the paucity, is that the word? There's not a lot. There's not a lot of studies even to know. And when we get to our big old rhombus here of insects, 99% have not even been assessed. This is all just 12,000 species of insects, which is a lot of species, but once again, there's a lot of insects. So I'll skip through this graphic. You all can check out this article in Reuters yourself. What I would like to link this to is Bell Bowl, and I think I've shared this graphic a million times before, but this is Dr. Laura Rarica Anker, who is the co-author of Flora of the Chicago region, as well as the forthcoming Bees of Southern Lake Michigan. She wrote a paper for us about the bees of Bell Bowl Prairie, and she, using her bee science, stated that there is about 100 species of native bee who utilize this tiny patch of 15 acres. And about 42 of those species of bee are remnant dependent. They cannot live outside of remnants as far as we understand it. And that means that these 42 species are Bell Bowl dependent species. And that's what this graphic is. And it's organized by genus. So I'll highlight over a genus here. So here we go. Coletes. There's a lot of Coletes bees, and the arrows going out go to the different species. So let's look at Coletes solidagensis. They only eat goldenrod, solidago. And if you see here, all of these other species, the arrows are pointing into solidago right there, from across these different genera. And then if you see in Coletes here, there are two arrows being pointed at Coletes. That's because Epiolus ainsley parasitizes the pollen collected by specifically Coletes susannae and other Coletes bee species. This graphic I put together to try to show the ways in which this stuff is all bound together. There are bees here who will only eat the pollen of lead plant, and there are bees here that will only eat the pollen of bees who only eat the pollen of lead plant. They're not cute pandas, but they are, as we've established, utterly essential for the whole food web of Earth, and also, like I said, they deserve to exist by their own rights. And so this is a difficult thing to communicate for people who don't care about bugs. And we are trying to find all the different ways we can to communicate this stuff. And yeah, I think when we talk about why Bell Bowl matters, I feel like the sweet rusty patch bumblebee, right? Is it even in here? Oh yeah, there. Rusty patch bumblebee, it's great, but I think that it sort of like gets us off talking about something that is distracting from the fact that a remnant is on an order of magnitude so much larger than any restoration could ever be as far as biodiversity. And this is just bees. I've talked to biologists who said that some of the bees in here, like we saw, we don't even have the insects assessed to know whether they are endangered or threatened. Certainly, if you're remnant dependent and there are only 2,500 acres of remnants left in Illinois, you're probably not. You would probably qualify for being listed as endangered or threatened, and there just isn't enough dollars going towards assessing these populations. And so I know that we Loraxes have to speak for the trees a lot, but I think we need to speak for the bees too, and the sweet cockroaches. My God, like they're very important. Dung beetles are very important. It's just yeah, you shouldn't hug them. So bug hug in your mind. I yield the floor to you, Jillian.
All right. I think we will return our screen share. It's just on another tab of the collapse of insects one.
Thank you.
All right. And then I will pass it over to Amy to talk about the fun stuff.
I always get the fun stuff. So I am here to deliver the fun news, but also the reason that we deliver this news at the meeting, and partly because it is it's news that's important for everyone to know. But going back to the very first slide, the too long didn't read slide, there are about 50 people, and I don't know how many are in the room, but there's a lot of action that we can take, and we want to make sure that that everyone has the most up-to-date information as best we can share it, so that we know how to direct our activities and our phone calls and our emails. And so, as Rob said, if we're angry and frustrated, that's only helpful if it leads to action. So a few updates. So each time we meet, we kind of give an update on where things are from the legal perspective, with consultation and lawsuits and things like that, and conversations with government officials related to this prairie. So since our last meeting, consultation with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has ended. They agreed. So the FAA, in their biological assessment, said that the project may affect, but is not likely to adversely affect, the rusty patch bumblebee, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife has concurred with that based on their assessment of the Endangered Species Act and the best available science, and the mitigation plans that the FAA and the airport are proposing, given that they will not do construction during foraging season. So the U.S. Fish and Wildlife is finished with their part of the involvement with the project. So they are finished, and it is back in the hands of the FAA to basically, they need to reissue a biological opinion according to the law, basically just reiterating what they plan to do. They have said that they are planning to that they are waiting for IDNR to concur with U.S. Fish and Wildlife on this. So as we move into what's going on at the state level, the airport had initially filed an incidental take permit application. And so they were going to ask IDNR to review and to issue them an incidental take permit. And they have withdrawn that from IDNR, so they are no longer asking for a permit. So the Illinois Endangered Species Act, it doesn't require an incidental take permit. It's simply something more like an insurance policy for the entity doing the taking. And so it would basically say, it would be the airport saying, we think we're going to kill an endangered species, so we want IDNR to give us permission in case we do. And then if we do, we won't have violated the law because you told us we could do it. So we're not sure why they have withdrawn their incidental take permit application. If it is because, it could be a couple of reasons. It could be that they believe they're not actually going to kill any endangered species, or it could be that they believe that there's a possibility that they are going to kill an endangered species, but the actual enforcement of the Endangered Species Act is tricky because they could kill a rusty patch bumblebee, but enforcement of the law would require proof that they killed a rusty patch bumblebee. It's disappointing that they aren't they aren't applying for their incidental take permit because an incidental take permit requires a conservation plan, which has extensive review, and that is no longer on the table as of right now. So Jill, you can go to the next slide. And the next slide, we're going to talk about the conversations with officials. So that's kind of the consultation, but there are still conversations that are happening. There's still confusion among state and federal agencies as to who is funding the Prairie Destroying Road. Even today, I had a conversation with an investigator at IDOT who said that that according to airport officials that he talked to, the airport is funding the road themselves. So that would be local tax dollars, but that they hope to get reimbursement from IDOT for that road. This is confusing. It's confusing because the Prairie Destroying Road, it's part of a larger project called the Midfield Expansion. And that project has federal, state, and local tax dollars that are all coming to it as a part of the overall project. It's also confusing because a year ago, in November of 2021, there was $3.6 million that was announced that it had been awarded to the airport for the construction of the Midfield Road. So it's still very unclear. And it is unclear also to the governor's office. So we have had conversations with policy analysts and deputy governors. So I will say, first of all, there is really good news there that the governor's office is paying attention. It is very much on their radar. There have been over 4,000 emails. In fact, I talked to somebody who had submitted a FOIA request and they got back the information about the exact number. Over 4,000 emails related to Belleville Prairie. And so it is on their radar. So the conversations and the emails and all of the work that you all have done, that we have done in making sure this is on the radar of the governor's office, it is on the radar of the governor's office, and we still need to continue that. They are working on helping sort out where the funding is coming from, what exactly is going on with this $3.6 million from IDOT. And we've also learned that IDOT is conducting an internal investigation into how Belleville Prairie was handled. And that was something that we're not sure, even the IDOT investigator is not sure what that means for the Prairie, but they are planning, we learned today that the investigator that was handling it, it is moving into the corporate counsel of IDOT to take over this investigation into what's going on with Belleville Prairie. So the governor's office is also still following up with that. And we've had conversation letting them know that it would be a shame if, while they were conducting an investigation to find out if things were mishandled, that the Prairie got destroyed. So hopefully there's some motivation to stop this until at least the investigation is over. And then there are also some Rockford City Council members that are working on a resolution that would express support for the Prairie. So that also is another advocacy effort that to encourage local citizens should encourage their city council members to vote for this resolution. And so we know that this is an effort that a group that can make some noise and can get attention. And so we should keep doing that. Legal updates, NLI, Natural Land Institute, is still working with their lawyers, and the Center for Biological Diversity has been involved, and they're working on figuring out what the most effective action plan going forward is. But the lawsuit is not the most effective means to get this Prairie saved. Really, it's cooperation between airport officials, Natural Land Institute, the state of Illinois, IDOT. And so that's really the role that we should all be focusing on in figuring out what we can do next. So Rob's going to tell us who can save the Prairie. I think this is you, Rob.
Sure. Yes, it is me. Before I say that, though, what is the name of the council member who is
Mark Bonney and Bill Rose.
Mark Bonney. Thank you, everyone. Yes, Mark Bonney and Bill Rose. Bill Rose actually came to this meeting last time, and they've both been very involved. And if I lived in Rockford, I would vote for them. So yeah, who can save the Prairie? Yeah, I believe that this is the folks who could save the Prairie as we understand it: the airport officials, the executive director and the airport board, the staff of the airport. Sorry, my child just started screaming. She is not a fan of the airport. So they could easily figure something out. The Rockford area officials using their power and influence holding their appointees accountable. I mentioned this in chat. The airport board, who is ostensibly the boss of the staff of the airport, they were appointed by the mayors of Loves Park, McChesney Park, Rockford, and Winnebago County. Those folks who are in those elected positions are responsible for the people that they appointed. And if they're acting poorly, then that reflects very badly on them. That their judgment is so bad that they could appoint people who would get rid of one of the very last prairies in Illinois, original prairies, one of the very last things that makes Rockford utterly unique. It is shameful. The governor getting 4,000 emails is great. I think we could do more. And the governor doesn't have a lot of power, as we understand it, to be like, I will step in and block these bulldozers myself. But obviously he has an immeasurable amount of clout. He was just reelected. If he came out publicly in defense of the Prairie, that I believe that would be influential and useful. So the FAA is still waiting for concurrence from IDNR as we understand it. So I would love someone who knew better about IDNR, maybe even in this meeting, who might know if that is true, to let us know. Because that is one of that might be the last thing that's keeping the construction from starting. And if they could take it as long as they needed to, maybe wait till March 15th, that would be great. And then, yes, IDOT potentially really messed up early on, and that is what their investigation is about. But we're also welcome to other ideas, obviously. I think there has been some really good ideas in chat, but they require coordination, and we also have to think, like, what is the best bang for the buck for our time right now. I don't think this is the time to do I don't know. Actually, I'm not gonna say that there are any bad ideas right now, but we have to be strategic. And so yelling at these people with whatever level of respect that you are comfortable with, I think is useful and a good place to put your energy. So we have these meetings coming up. March 15th, I mentioned because that is when foraging season starts again for the rusty patch bumblebee, and that is when that they would not be allowed to do construction because they would potentially kill an endangered species. And that right now their justification for being able to do it out of that season is based on one observation of a rusty patch bumblebee in the history of the bee nesting over the winter, and then a study about a European bumblebee. Just those two things. And the European bumblebee was from 1927. So that's their science that they're pointing to, saying like that's why it's okay to do this construction. So if we can make it to March 15th, which isn't, I mean, we've made it more than a year now, then that will give them another summer till October 15th, when the bee is supposed to go into hibernation. That's the goal. Here are these places to speak up at. We've had a great turnout of diverse voices at different meetings. The board meeting for the airport is important to come to. I personally think you'll get more sympathetic ears at these city council places where they actually are accountable to voters. The board, the airport board folks are they're not really good listeners. They're not active listeners. But it is good to continue to make sure that they know that literally hundreds of thousands of people want them to change their mind. So if you are interested in speaking at these for the Prairie, we can help you with your words, or you can please speak from your heart. There are lots of opportunities to come and speak up at these places, and it's very valuable. And as you can see, a lot of them happen at the same time on Mondays. The information about IDNR we're trying to get is whether or not they are holding up the process. Last we heard, the FAA is waiting for final agreement from IDNR that it's like basically like they won't be killing any endangered animals. It's okay to kill endangered plants. So that is what we're waiting to hear, is whether or not IDNR actually is holding it up, because we thought that they were done. So yeah, the other thing is the Prairie Watchdog. We do need people to drive by the Prairie and see if construction is starting, because they're supposed to warn us. They're supposed to. The airport had told, the airport's lawyer had told NLI's lawyer that they would warn, like with a various amount of time, like 5-7 days before construction starts again. But no one from the airport is speaking to anyone that we know of with any information. So driving by the Prairie and keeping an eye on it to see if the construction has started. That's how we found out that construction was happening at all. And that is how we're going to continue to be alerted to this. So here we go. Am I doing the summary too?
I can take over the summary.
Please do.
All righty. In summary, Bell Bowl is still there. Great job, everyone. We have done it up until now. So we just need to continue doing it.
You saying the bowl itself, or are you talking about?
The Prairie itself. The bowl was part of their construction last fall, I believe. So the bowl itself is not actually there. But Bell Bowl, Prairie is still there. So now is not the time to lose hope. It's not the time to give up. It's not the time to like retreat into your little hermit shell like you might want to. But it's not the time for that. Also keeping in mind that we don't know when the airport plans to resume their destruction of the Prairie. So like Rob said, they told, and their lawyer told NLI's lawyer that they would, but I don't believe them. And there's a lot of officials that we've talked to, like Governor Pritzker, Senator Durbin, local officials. We know that Mayor McNamara is kind of afraid of us, so that's kind of fun. But they don't want to speak out because they don't have legal authority to step in and do anything to save the Prairie. Like legally, the airport doesn't have to listen to them. But that doesn't mean they don't still have influence and power, and that them speaking up wouldn't mean something to the airport and the airport's image. So we still think that's important to keep pressuring people to speak up when they have that kind of political power. Or if they're in charge, like directly in charge of their funding opportunities, like say Governor Pritzker is, I don't know, just spitballing here. Also, our local officials know that the airport destroying this Prairie is not going to look good for them. It's not going to look good for the city. It's not going to look good for the airport. And it certainly won't look good for Rockford elected officials. And so that's why they're starting to work on this resolution that will say, hey, the airport, the Prairie have been here for decades, coexisting. They can continue to do that. That would be great. And so it's because of people who have continued to show up to their like city council meetings and board meetings, saying that this is still an issue that a bunch of people are still caring about, that they're willing to stick their neck out a little bit and say like, yeah, we can cover all of our bases here and not have this be an issue in a very simple fashion.
Sorry.
You're good. Yeah, that's the main summary. Do we have another slide or was
Nope.
that the last one?
How about the county board?
The county board, yeah, we've had a couple people come try and speak to the county board
You
too.
didn't have anything up there about when their next meeting is.
We didn't, you're right. I can look into that and put some information out there about their next meeting. Yeah.
What is a IDOT?
IDOT is the Illinois Department of Transportation. So they're the state agency that oversees the airport. And the FAA is the Federal Aviation Administration, which is the federal body that oversees the airport. And so early on, when they were doing this project, IDOT probably said that Belleville Prairie wasn't as important as it was, and that's what gave them the go-ahead to continue this whole plan. And so now that for a year, their plan has been stalled, they haven't been able to make any construction in that area, IDOT is realizing, okay, that was a mistake, how can we make sure that doesn't happen again? And so we are trying to tell IDOT, hey, wouldn't it be great if you could remedy that mistake by also not destroying the prairie because you messed up in the first place?
Gotcha, thank you.
Mhm. Yeah.
Has the Illinois Nature Preserves Commission entertained proposing a dedication for the remaining prairie? Is that the discussion that Friends of Illinois Nature Preserves is having at this point?
Yeah, that was early on. The preserve board's like, yeah, Bell Bowl would have been dedicated years ago, but the airport, the landowner has to invite it. They have to ask. And so clearly they don't want that. But yeah, it would qualify as an Illinois nature preserve. And that is, in the long term, that's what we want. That's what I want, is for Bell Bowl to be protected as an Illinois nature preserve, so that roads can't be driven through it.
Has the commission issued a statement about this?
The commission themselves, they have not issued a statement. There was, when George Covington was the chair of the Nature Preserves Commission, he's no longer the chair, he's still on the Nature Preserves Commission, but he did write an editorial that or a letter to the editor that appeared in the Chicago Sun-Times. The commission as a whole has not made any statement about it.
Seems like they should.
Yeah.
But Nature Preserve, as Rob pointed out, the commission doesn't have any authority to make this a nature preserve, because the law that creates the nature preserve system relies on the landowner making that dedication. So they can't designate anything. It's actually dedication, and the landowner gets to decide.
There's some stuff about the rusty patch bumblebee overwintering. They, like I said, the science that they cite in their biological assessment is a study about how they're pretty sure similar bumblebees would prefer to overwinter in woodlands based on this European bumblebee that they found. And there's like something about, you know, if it's a prairie, then the sun heats the ground too fast for it to be safe to emerge, and the woodlands or the wood edges are they offer more sort of like temperature regulation, so that if the queens do emerge, then it's safer to be in the cold. And then the other thing is the one rusty patch bumblebee that was seen to nest ever or overwinter. It's not nesting. There's just not a lot of evidence. And if they destroy the prairie and they find a bunch of bee corpses, which is almost impossible, they'd be like, oops, we destroyed the prairie, and look, I guess they do overwinter here. You know, they have science that they can point to that U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service agreed with. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, to their credit, put in their agreement, their letter, that they are trying to hold them to the things that they said they would do, which involves protecting the remaining 6.8 acres and stewarding it. And if this goes down, that's what we would have to try to hold them to, because that's what we're looking at. What remains: 6.8 acres of bifurcated prairie with the road going right through the middle.
Also, I know there's been a lot of people bringing up like mitigation stuff on the Save Belleville Prairie Facebook group. So I just wanted to throw it out there that in the conservation plan that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service approved, the airport didn't include anything about mitigation. So they legally wouldn't have to like build Prairie somewhere else or let the Department of Natural Resources come in and save all the rarest plants and some of the soil and things like that to take it to transplant somewhere else. Legally, that is not one of the things that they're being bound to. Even though it was in their first draft that they submitted, when the U.S. Fish and Wildlife was like, are you sure? And then they sent it back to them, they took that out. So that was a bummer.
There are no current plans to protest outside the governor's home again, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't float the idea and get some friends together and do it, or reach out to the group who did it last time, Rising Tide Chicago. Some of their members are here tonight, and they've been closely watching this. Yeah, other protests, other places. I mean, yeah, I think there are lots of options, and we just have to, consider what the best bang for the buck is. Pritzker does seem to, or at least his people seem to care. Mike Dunn does not seem to care, but is that the goal? I don't know. Yeah.
Does anybody know who appointed Mike Dunn?
Yes, the commission, he has a contract with the airport. So the commissioners are appointed and the commissioners are his supervisors. He has a contract with the airport board, with the commissioners. So they as a commission appoint him as a director.
Was he still on the board when they appointed him director? Because didn't he go straight from being director of the board to director of the airport?
That I have no idea.
Okay, it was something fishy.
I think Laura has a question.
I do have a question, strategy wise. So first of all, I just want to say that my environmental after school group, the middle school kids, did this incredible presentation to Don Harmon, who is a state senator. He's the president of the state Senate. And his comment was, there's more than just the bee. Like, he literally had no idea on all this other stuff. They mentioned the bee, but they also talked about the rareness of the ecosystem, all this, the soil. They just did this incredible job. So, okay, so that's one thing. I'm just tooting a horn there because they were awesome. But secondly, maybe do the protests at the board meetings, will we piss Mike Dunn off? Will he get more stubborn? Or will other people in the board start to respond if we start to get a little more like confrontational in terms of like maybe blocking the doors or something like that at the board meeting? I just feel like something is, we're being very polite. And is it time to like stop being polite, or is that going to backfire because he's such a tool? That's my question.
Yeah, it's tough because it is technically airport property. And so they have like their own little airport militia that when they think there's going to be a lot of people at the board meeting, sometimes they'll have like 4 security guards, like fully armed security guards, like standing in the boardroom. And it's tough because like Mike Dunn definitely thinks he's like the king of the airport and would gladly arrest anyone. So people would just have to be aware that that would be a possibility if you do get more confrontational at their board meetings, which I'm not against. It's just, there's a lot of things to consider.
Yeah, like I was just thinking, like, what if we all sat in front of them and like we just sat on that stage in front of them with our signs?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, we've got a question in the room.
Seems to me that the purpose of a demonstration is to call attention to the problem or the issue, which then creates a larger group of people putting pressure on the ones who are gonna change their mind. I don't think sitting in front of a group of stubborn people is gonna change anybody's mind, but I think if you do something that generates news coverage, and that then gets somebody digging back into the history of this whole thing, and you know, if you see it on the news 2 or 3 nights in a row, or even once a week for a couple of weeks, I think that's gonna have a greater influence on the people whose minds have to be changed than doing something directly to them, because most people don't even know there is a board, let alone that they meet, let alone that they have to make decisions.
Mhm. Did people online hear that?
Yeah. Jillian, I also wanted to just quickly respond to what Laura said about her students. So when I had a conversation with somebody from the governor's office, they said that they had received a call from the president of the Senate who asked them to do an investigation. And so those conversations, they do matter. I mean, it may be frustrating. So Laura, you can take that back to your students, because sometimes we do these things and you don't know the impact. But when we've talked to people, those 4,000 plus emails getting to the governor's office, they're making a difference. And when students are speaking to the president of the Senate, it makes a difference. So we need to keep those communications happening and be as strategic as we can. So these conversations are helpful.
2 things here. First of all, Laura Stamp, that was pretty impressive. I'm wondering, I mean, would this be a possibility to bring some of your students or other you know, environmental club students, high school, middle school, otherwise, to an airport board meeting or to one of these city council meetings? You know, I think there's something almost subliminal that you consider, hey, this is the future voters, not only this could be my kid, this is the future, but they're the future voters. And it might be something that media might pick up, newspapers.
Yeah, I would say that would be super powerful. I know that there's a student from Hinsdale Central who's been pretty involved in this. But I think that the issue is getting students to care and get there. Like my students were an hour and a half away. So it's really tricky for us to get to a board meeting. But I think if you can get local high school students who are, in my opinion, a lot of students are dying to do something real. So coming to a protest like this would be good. Yep. They just need a student to get them, you know, fired up to get there. So if you can find a couple high school kids and middle school kids who are ready to do that in the area, that's really powerful. I don't know, you know, that area, the high school kids. I did speak to an environmental group last year. I zoomed into a meeting. I mean, they all signed the petition, but they weren't like super excited to jump in and lead. So if you have any leads on environmental groups at the high schools and middle schools, I would reach out to them.
And we do have a lot of resources that we can share with teachers, anyone who wants to help organize this stuff that we've created just for them, but we just need the connections. But I also believe that the children are our future. We should teach them well and let them lead the way. So it is 8:02. Do people have any other questions? Obviously, we're all available in the various social medias. We're all working on this together. We are all, anytime people have like floated ideas out and we've discussed them, please don't see it as like someone has approved it or someone hasn't approved it. You are approved to do all that you think is necessary. And we will, anyone here is very excited and interested in helping figure out what the most effective thing is. So do it. Laura, do you have something else you want to say?
I just have one last thing. Like, I think the mayor of Rockford's a super big weenie. Like he literally ran away from me at an event. So I really think that we should get to that Rockford, the next city council meeting, with my students want me to take their posters there. So if you can bring posters and get bodies to that, get to that next meeting, I think maybe that's where we kind of focus our efforts, is showing up at that meeting, even if we miss out on the signing up, because I know you have to sign up a week in advance. But I think that's a good one. I know it's really hard because it's close to the holidays, but we gotta like keep the pressure on.
Laura?
Yes.
When I've spoken to them, I could sign up one day in advance.
Yeah, I know you can sign up a week in advance, but I know that there's some group that is like right on it and signs up and takes the spots. So I think we need to be ready to sign up as soon as possible.
Yeah, Rockford.
Absolutely, first come, first serve.
Rockford police have been brutalizing teenagers recently, so there's been a lot of protests about that too. But then there's also been like anti-abortion people who are like, man, it's gonna be bad for my business. So it's like,
Yeah.
There's varying degrees of.
Yeah, so there's a lot of issues. So getting our opportunity to sign up, like we might just get there with all our signs and the giant bee. And, we have side conversations and we talk to the council members who are sympathetic, and we, make sure that they know we're there.
Yeah.
How about creating contact lists? Is there, if you could centralize all the names, email addresses, regular mail addresses of all aldermen in Rockford, all the people in McChesney Park, all the members of the county board, so we wouldn't have to individually go chasing down all that stuff and then put it on the website or something.
Great idea. That exists. You're in luck. That is on savebellevilleprairie.com or savebellevilleprairie.org. If you click on how can I help, and I'll share the link in chat, that exists, the lists of names, emails, mailing addresses. And if there are names and emails and mailing addresses that aren't on there, someone in this group has it and would be happy to share it with you. So yeah, it does. Here also, this is in chat.
I'll try and go through tomorrow and make sure the list on the website is all updated too, to make sure everybody who needs to be annoyed is being annoyed.
I don't know the name of the person who was talking about getting more media coverage. Somebody spoke about 5 minutes ago, but that seems to be a line of, like brainstorming that should be pursued.
Yeah, definitely.
How do we, I know people want to, I don't know, do people want to end the meeting? I'm fine. I just got here though 20 minutes ago, so I've got energy to burn. But
I think one of it, and it shows up in chat, I think having a physical protest, having students with signs at meetings, or having a physical, that's what keeps it in front of the media. And so, when there was a protest at the governor's office or a governor's home, and there's a visual, the media loves things that have a visual representation. So us just talking on a screen isn't very visually compelling, but having people show up with signs and with giant bees, and especially when it's celebratory of what is special and important. So it's kind of that mix of celebration of what's special and important about the Prairie and righteous indignation that it's going to be destroyed. It makes for a great story and compelling, and it's real.
thank you.
All right, I also wanted to mention that we do have more Save Belleville Prairie yard signs. So we're trying to keep those focused in the Winnebago County area so that people who need to see them are able to see them. But if you want one, let me know. I'll give it to you for free, but if you have $20, that offsets the cost of the sign for us, which is great. But as I said, if you don't want to, you can still have a sign. So feel free to reach out to me if you are not here in person, or follow me after the meeting if you are here in person and want a sign. Because I got the connections. Anything else we need to discuss tonight? Excellent. I
I'll
think
just-
take it away, Rob.
I just want to say as a last thought, sort of like to end on an up note, there are so many good people who exist who care about this stuff, and the destruction that is slated to happen cannot destroy how we've all been brought together, and it can't destroy how we're all teaching each other and learning from each other and caring about these little sweet little bees. And that is indestructible. And so let's keep building on that, because it's a really beautiful, powerful thing that is cannot be bulldozed. So thank you all for existing.
And thank you for existing in this meeting room. Feel free to now go exist somewhere else. And please come to the other meetings that are happening in the next few weeks. So long, farewell, have a good night. Bye, everybody.
When is your next meeting?
Our next meeting, we don't have planned yet, but we have those like city council board meetings and stuff, which are where we're gonna be focusing.
And the airport meeting is next Thursday night.
Next Thursday.
Is there anybody here who'd be willing to speak at that meeting? It's a 3-minute public comment.